Hi, everybody. Welcome to week 8. I know. Can you believe it? Week 8. One thing I want to say about week 8 before I dive into what this week looks like in our class. Generally speaking, around week 7 to 10, those are the most stressful points of the semester. So if you're feeling the stress, if you're feeling like everything is due, projects, midterms, lots of work, that's because that's just generally kind of the flow of the semester. It just gets really busy right around the middle. So just hang on. If you have a job that is at all flexible, I always recommend, if you can, see if your work managers can be a little flexible with your hours. Make sure, excuse me, that you're getting enough sleep. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself, whatever that looks like, even if it's just laying in bed for an extra few minutes and kind of anchoring yourself for the day. Whatever it means for you, just know that you're in kind of the thick of it right now. Week 8 is the halfway point of the semester, and a lot of things just tend to be due, not to mention midterms. So just be aware of that. Just kind of check in with yourself about that. The other thing I would like to just remind you of, in case you don't know that already, is that we do not have a midterm in here. I don't do midterms in 230. And so if you are curious if there's a midterm coming up, that answer is no. So take another deep breath and okay. All right. So what I want to do before I'm actually going to walk you through the module this week, but what I want to do first is show you the module just at a glimpse. So just kind of look, this is our week 8 module right here. So I just want you to kind of look at the pages that are here. We have a lot going on this week. Well, a lot meaning reading and writing. So there's a lot. There's no essay, right? Congrats on getting your essay in. Actually, what I should say too for the essay is that I usually take about a week and a half to try and get the essays back. I teach 4 classes total, and my other 2 classes, 221 essays came in last week. So I need to wrap those up before I can put an eye towards ours here in 230. And once I do that, it usually takes about a week and a half. So don't look for anything this week. It won't happen this week. More likely it'll be, for sure it'll be next week, if not late into the week after. But we'll see. Or early in the next week. But late next week is my goal. Okay, sorry, just talked myself in circles. Okay, let's take a look. We'll start with the planning page. And again, this week, this is just a good way to kind of anchor yourself in terms of where we're headed this week, what the direction is. The next page, I know, don't panic. Don't panic. This looks like the essay assignment. It is the essay assignment, but it's the essay assignment and the assignment that's going to feed into it. So I'm not really even going to talk about it this week because I want you, for those of you who feel like you kind of need to see where we're going, then this is here for you. If you're like, look, I just turned in essay 1. I do not want to think about essay 2 yet. Great, you don't have to yet. The one thing I would suggest you maybe take a look at is this annotated bibliography piece, even if you're just reading through it just to see what it's about. Again, I'll talk more about it next week, largely because you just turned the essay in and I just don't want to piggyback it that quickly. But as I've mentioned, the annotated bibliography, this assignment feeds into essay 2 and it's based on a chapter of Homegoing. So anyway, if you can read through this, I will make a separate video about it next week. Okay. So the reading schedule for Homegoing, I'm going to include it in the module every week we're in this unit, so you all know what we're reading when. The chapters are not numbered, as you know. They're labeled by character title. So just to kind of keep that in mind, spring break's coming. It's coming. Again, the short story, the structure of Homegoing is a novel / historical fiction / short story. I've given you the family tree here, but you know what? It's also in the book, and I think I forgot to mention that last week. But if you look at the first, just before the text starts, you'll see a family tree there that she's given you. This one that I have given you is just color-coded so you can visually track the characters a little bit easier, but the one in the book is basically the same. So just keep in mind that the descendants are based off of the 2 chapters you read last week, Ephia and Essie, and it's really important to be able to just keep in mind, like, all of the odd numbers, well, all of every other chapter is Ephia's, and then, you know, every other chapter is Essie's, and these are their descendants, right? And so this is a generational story. It's just important to keep that in mind. Okay. Oh, yes, Quay's story. Again, the background pages are designed to kind of give you some information about the historical references that she makes in the chapter. She made it very clear, and if you watched the Trevor Noah interview from last week, you heard that, you know, she made it very clear that she wanted each person's story to be anchored in some kind of historical event or moment or phenomena or trend or something like that, right? And so what I wanted to do was give you background to that. Last week there was a lot about the transatlantic slave trade. There was a lot about the Cape Coast Castle, about the Afantes and the Asantes. And so this week there's more of that historical significance. And in a couple of stories, it might be really important for you to know what the laws are. So we'll show that. Yeah, so again, for each of the pages, you've got a background, the family lineage, who's coming from whom, and then the historical focus here. Quay's chapter is really a lot about kind of the resistance to the trade between African tribes. Yeah, which I found very interesting because I never learned about that in school. Chapter 4 is about Ness, and this video, so if you look at the very beginning of the chapter, there's a direct reference to this song, Follow the Drinking Gourd, which I think is really interesting. Beautiful, beautiful rendition of it here. And the idea that there were all of these codes in the song. So if you've never learned about that, then, and you find that interesting, that might be something to learn a little bit more about. Chapter 5 is James, and James definitely presents us with some problems and some questions, right, about kind of what happened. So here's a little bit of a rundown of what actually literally took place between the British and the Asante soldiers. So if you're interested about that, if you really want to dive into the history, there's information here about the Golden Stool. The last chapter for this week is Kojo. And the one thing I will say about Kojo's chapter is that it's important for you to know a little bit about the Fugitive Slave Act. For me, I knew a little bit about it, but when I read the story the first time, I didn't remember the details. And so the details, they're not vital, but they help you understand a little bit more clearly what is happening in this chapter. And so I would encourage you to watch it. You know, I'm using a lot of these crash course selections. They're put together really, really well, and I kind of had them vetted with some history professors, and they thought that they were really well done. And I'm also a huge fan of Clint Smith. And so anyway, so that's why I'm relying on some of these. This excerpt from 12 Years a Slave you might find interesting as you are reading Kojo's story. And then the Great Migration, which is kind of why Kojo is where he is, why he and Anna are there. If you are interested in learning about the Great Migration, I can recommend a book by Isabel Wilkerson called Caste. It's an incredible book, and it's all about the Great Migration, and it follows, I can't remember, 4 or 5 different people and kind of their paths out of the South and into the greater part of the United States. So if you're interested in that, I'm happy to talk more about it. But this video really explains something that many history textbooks completely overlook that I think is personally fascinating. Okay, so that takes us through the chapters that are assigned for this week. 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, okay. This week begins our first of 3 weeks of literary criticism study. Literary criticism is a requirement of English 230 for the UC and CSU system. So in some classes, you may have friends who are taking English 230 and they're writing entire essays using literary criticism. For me, it's more about I want to give students a choice of which theory to use in smaller writings over the course of 3 different weeks. So we're not going to be writing a major essay using literary criticism. The goal is just kind of, it's almost like a criticism buffet, if you will, right? You're going to be learning about 5 or 6 different theories. Each, you're going to be learning about 2 a week, and then you're going to choose which chapter you want to apply that to. So reading these pages will kind of anchor you into the whole idea of what even is literary theory, what is literary criticism. And then you have 2 different lenses to learn about this week. The first is feminist criticism. And again, a quick overview, a little video, a write-up here. And again, I'm trying to give you as many videos as I can so those of you who are working or multitasking can kind of listen as you're learning about the criticism. The first is feminist criticism. And the second is, let me make sure I've got it right. Yeah, gender studies and queer theory. And those, so all 3 of them are similar, but they have very different kind of origin points, origin stories, if you will. They've got different beginnings. So you're going to read about both of those lenses. Sorry, I'm going to scroll down. And there are questions here that kind of get you thinking about how you might approach a text with that theory. And then you're going to go into the assignment. And the assignment is to choose 1 chapter. So you've got 4 chapters this week, right? So you're going to choose one, and you're going to choose one of the theories, feminist theory or gender studies / queer theory. And you're going to choose the 1 chapter and I'll use that theory with that chapter. And kind of think about what, if you're looking at that chapter in that lens, what do you maybe see that maybe you didn't see before? That's what literary criticism does, is it gives you an opportunity to see things a little bit differently, to see things a little bit more narrowly, maybe, to kind of shed light on a different perspective. So I've given you the breakdown of the assignment as well as an example that I have written for you, including the format that I would like you to use for this assignment. And I used the feminist lens to look at a chapter from last week as an example. You're going to be using one of the 2 lenses from this week and apply it to one of the chapters of this week. So it's called raising an eyebrow. Like, what do you think? Like, if I use this lens, what does this show me? So you've got a good explanation of it here. And that is due on the 18th with the grace period of the next day. Okay. Almost done. Your writing territory this week is called Anaphora. That's just a fancy way of saying repetition. You've got some excellent examples here, many of which you are already familiar with. So that's your goal, is to try it in your writing this week. And then I'm speeding through because my timer's almost up. And then, as always, writing territory is due by Friday, and you have a grace period of the next day until noon. Oh, that should say AM. I'll fix that. Almost last but not least, you have a mid-semester check-in. So this is a little quiz that is designed to just kind of touch base with where you're at, to have you kind of think about what your participation is like in the course overall, what your participation is like in Discord, how you've done with submitting your work, how you felt about essay number 1. It's just kind of touching base with you about where you're at and what changes you might like to make for the last half of this semester. That is due by Sunday. And that's the end. That's the end of week 8. And once you've hit, that's kind of how it feels, right? At the end, once you've hit the end of week 8, it's like, okay, then you're on the downhill slope the last half of the semester. As always, if you need anything, let me know. If you would like to schedule a conference for any reason, all you have to do is click that, and you're welcome to schedule a conference. All right, I have student hours Thursday and Friday morning this week, 9 to 11. Feel free to pop in anytime. And have a good week. Happy reading. I hope that you're enjoying the book.